Hey guys, Agmore here. Been playing through Anno 117 and there's a few things that I've found along the way playing through the campaign, or whatever there is of campaign. I'm in the forever game now. There's a few things that I found that I didn't quite figure out straight away, maybe about a third of the way into the game, that are actually really crucial for being able to optimize your production chains. And the first one, which is probably the most biggest thing, is I didn't realize that the warehouses are like magic boxes. It doesn't matter what you put, where you put your storage into, it's going to be available in any of the warehouses that you put on the island. So that includes the trading post as well. So let's say I'm building something here and I put it into this warehouse. That means across the other side of the map I can take it out and put it into a production building. So you don't need to transfer goods from one warehouse to another. They all share the same inventory, and in order to get really efficient with the production that you've got going on, you need to make sure that you surround your warehouse as much as possible with those production or resource buildings. So here's a prime example here. I've got a bunch of production buildings and they are right next to the warehouse, and when they go off to actually collect something out of the warehouse, it's just across the road. They don't have to travel a long distance to get there. There may be situations where you don't have enough room to do that, and you might have to, for example, have something a little bit more further away in order for it to get there. Let's see if I can find an example for that. So like maybe here, for example, this one's a little bit further down. So what you can do is make a paved road or a marble road if you have it unlocked, and then you can just set that as a paved road between the warehouse and the building, and then they're going to get increased speed by going in between the warehouse and that building. So you can see the cart moves quite a bit faster when it goes across the paved road and then slows down on the dirt road. And same kind of concept for marble as well. The paved road and the marble road is unlocked via the research tree though, so just invest in that when you can. The next part is something that I didn't actually figure out until way later, is if you look at your religion and the global, for my main island that I have on Latium, I would recommend having Ceres, or you could have it your main, or whatever your biggest or second biggest population is. I would recommend Ceres because she has some really great bonuses of adding population to all residences. So you can see here you get a bonus 1, 2, and 3, which is really nice. But probably the main thing that I've found is once you just get a little bit of the religion, you unlock the Shrine of Ceres, and that gives an area effect of population +1. And when you're trying to progress through the game, your biggest blocker is most likely going to be you're limited on the population that you have, and you have to grow your population. So the great thing about the statue, for example, here we have a Shrine of Ceres. It has a radius effect, and all of the buildings around it get +1 population. So really useful for increasing your population quite quickly. And you have one here, for example. I'll just, let's get rid of it for now. You see my population here for this workforce is 242, and then if I add it in here, it goes up to 262. So there's a good 20 population just out of one house space. And the great thing is that that statue is actually the exact same 3x3 grid as a normal house. So when you have a densely populated area like this, you can just delete one house, put a shrine, and then you get 20 population instead of what you might usually have. So that's a really good way that I found. If you spread across all of these shrines all across the map, then you get a good boost to your population. One important factor to take into account is the production chain for the buildings as well. So early on, it's quite simple to understand. You look at this and you're like, oh, I need one of these and one of these, which is true because the processing time you can see is 1 minute, and processing time for here is also 1 minute. So they are perfectly balanced. And same for the hats with, well, not the same actually. The hats is 30 seconds for the sheep, and then 1 minute for the hats. So with this, it means the sheep takes 30 seconds to create one, and this takes one, but it takes 1 minute to create a hat. So it's going to be, it's going to have too much to be able to process perfectly. So if you have one sheep farm, then you're going to need 2 hat makers to make it perfectly balanced. And it's really quite straightforward in order to understand at the start, but then later on, once you get into further tiers like tier 2, it gets a little bit more complicated. For example, with this one, we've got the wheat farm, processing time 1 minute, grain mill, processing time 3 minutes, and then the bread is back to 1 minute. So if you're creating one every minute, then this one is going to be waiting for the next wheat for half the time. So you can have one grain mill, but it needs to have 2 wheat farms to be perfectly balanced. But then on the flip side of that is that if you've got that perfectly balanced on the grain mill, then you can actually have 2 bread makers. So it actually turns out that you get more bread, more of the in-game product, so, which is going to be a lot more useful when you perfectly balance the production chains. So whenever you're setting up a production chain, whatever tier or item it might be, just keep an eye on that processing time and make sure you're trying to aim for the perfect balance for that end product that you've got. And keep in mind of any other items in the tiers that use the same product, and make sure you're balancing that out. And in order to kind of get a global look, you can look under the section here under production and get an idea of the balance of each of the items. The last thing I think that is probably the most impactful throughout the game is the specialists that you have in your villa. So anything that I found that anything that increases your income in the early game, or maybe population or workforce, those are going to be the things that are going to be the most impactful. So there's one here that I got. It's an epic workforce from residents plus 20%. That one is really good because, you know, obviously you're going to get a bunch more workforce out of every building that you make that's in that radius, and you're going to be able to progress through the game a lot faster. So those are my tips. Hopefully you found them useful. If they did, then please like the video and subscribe, and leave a comment on if you have any tips of your own that you found really useful when playing through the game. Thanks for watching.